Somebody's getting it, somebody's getting my love. Somebody's getting it, somebody. Somebody done got it. Somebody done got it. Somebody done got it.
Hi, I'm Pouyan Shirzadi,
And I'm Kiran Kilambi.
and you're listening to the Court Podcast. Today on the Court Podcast, we're discussing the NBA bubble playoff predictions. But before we get into that, we're going to have a bubble recap. So, Kiran, who in their right mind thought that the Phoenix Suns can go 8-0?
Well, to be frank, absolutely no one. And
Not gonna.
you know,
I think Monty Williams did though. Low key, Monty Williams was like, "Them boys are gonna get them dubs," you know.
maybe, but I mean, when they're facing teams like the Mavs, like the Thunder, like the Clippers, like they had a tough schedule and they did everything they could have done. They couldn't have done anything more, and unfortunately, it didn't really work out for them. But they did everything they could have done, and they played great.
And not gonna lie, they had a lot of breakout players as well. Players that like proved themselves to the people. You know, DeAndre Ayton is kind of proving like, yo, like with all this talk about Trey, Luca, you know, I'm here too. You know, you got to start talking about me a little bit. Cam Johnson, yo, people got to give more credit to Cam Johnson. This man is gonna be a bona fide star. Like,
Yeah.
he has all-star potential, and it's like he's so big. You get what I'm saying? He's so big, but he can shoot. You know what I'm saying? He's like different than any other player I've seen. It's like he's not like big like Cat or Kristaps, and he can shoot. He's just got this like physique about him that makes it so hard to guard him, and so hard to attack him, but also so hard to defend him when he's shooting.
Yeah.
He's just the freak of nature, in my opinion. And
I mean, you're right, and like us as Raptors fans, we saw what this team could do when they faced us in the bubble preseason games, and they didn't miss a beat, and they cruised through this 8-game stretch they had, and
Yeah.
they're a lot of people are gonna be watching them next year, and for good reason, because they got a bright future.
Yeah, I agree. Next year, the Phoenix Suns have a great chance to make the playoffs. I hope they make the playoffs. I hope they don't pull a Sacramento Kings sort of situation where they get really close and then the next season is just a big disappointment like this year. But that is for us to find out soon. Next, the Nuggets had a great performance so far in the bubble, Kieran. MPJ, Bobo, the whole team is on point. What are your thoughts?
I mean, like you said, Porter and Bull. They played really well in their games, and I mean Porter dropped 30 points at least twice. It may have been 3 times, but he dropped 30 at least twice. And obviously, we saw like the Nuggets were testing out playing Bull, and Jokic on together during the preseason, and Bull continued, I guess, his playing. He continued his form and played really well when the game started to count. And we beat the Nuggets, but I mean, they still played really well in their games.
Yeah. But Nuggets are a good team. I don't think for the teams that already knew their position in the playoffs, like the Raptors and Nuggets, we can really judge their last games, in terms of like this is their standard performance or this win counts a lot. I feel like we gotta look at the individual performances and how they racked up. So, for example, looking at how Stanley Johnson played, or how Chris Boucher played, or how Bull played, how their performances helped their team in that game and what they can produce in a playoff game or in an actual playoff series.
Yeah. I mean, that series against Utah is going to be very, very interesting, and they went to overtime in the game they played in the bubble.
Yeah,
so
that game, I was watching that game. Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray were just going at it. Like dude, Donovan Mitchell hit around 4 or 5 clutch shots, and I mean to tie the game, to bring it up by 1 point, to cut down their lead to 1. He was going at it. Same with Jamal Murray on the other end too.
Mm-hmm. It's a good preview to what we have in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Or went to
But-
double overtime. Excuse me. Yeah, they went to double OT.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dude, I tell you, they were going at it. It was even close at the very end. Like, it was close to a triple OT. And not gonna lie, that's sort of Nuggets basketball for me. Like, every time I watch the Nuggets or, like, hear about a game about the Nuggets, it's always going into deep OT.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah. Speaking of clutch plays, let's talk about Damian Lillard, your bubble MVP by the NBA and the Disney resorts. You know, the man was going off. I know the man, these last 3 games, which were really important to the Portland Trailblazers, averaged 51 points and 9 assists. Unreal numbers. These are Wilt numbers. Like, these are better than Wilt numbers, even though I know it's 3 games, Kiran. We all know it's 3 games. But what are your thoughts on Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers?
I mean, it's just he was amazing. Like, he dropped over 50 2 games in a row against Philly and the Mavs. He dropped 40 against Brooklyn, and he fell just short of that mark today. But I mean, it didn't really matter because he did what he did in the earlier games, and he got this team into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. People like Skip, Patrick Beverly, PG, they're gonna be upset about themselves. They're gonna be sad. They're gonna be angry because they got fucking Damian on fire, man. They pissed off Damian. They really pissed them off.
And I mean, we're all looking forward to seeing what Dame can do against a team like the Lakers, and I think that Rondo's absence could play a huge factor. And this Portland team, I mean, they're not, let's just say, I mean, I'm putting it out there, this team is not going to get swept, and it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So speaking of him and him being the bubble MVP, Kieran, who are your top 5 players or per se your all bubble first team?
So I guess like we mentioned, Dame Lillard, Devin Booker is there, T.J. Warren is up there. Luka, I put Luka in the first team, and then my final person is Michael Porter. And obviously, you know, Harden played really well, and he made the actual first team. And obviously, you got Giannis and Kawhi on the second team. But I think that MPJ, I mean, he stepped it up big time. And if he's not dropping 30 points, like in the 2 games that he did, then Denver doesn't win those games. And I agree considering. So I think that he deserves a first team all bubble spot. And obviously, I mean, I'm not knocking anything away from Harden. Like, we all know what he can do. But I think that, you know, that MPJ deserves it.
MPJ, I agree with you. So you had MPJ, Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, TJ Warren, and who?
And Dame Lillard.
Dame Lillard. Oh, how can I forget about Dame Lillard? Just a solid brain freeze moment here, but I actually agree with you. I agree. All those players, T.J. Warren, Devin Booker, Damian Lillard, and MPJ are all, in my opinion, in the top 5 players of the bubble. Mm-hmm. I would want to be biased and add Raptors players, even though the Raptors played amazing. I don't think any of them really showed too much. If I have to say, if there was a Raptors best player in the bubble, and I would give it to Kyle Lowry or Fred VanVleet. Yeah,
you're probably right. Like, I mean, there's no one player that really stepped it up big time. I mean, obviously, you know, our bench guys, they played well, but there wasn't, like, I mean, Michael Porter, who would have thought that he would be averaging 30 a game, you know, in, like, January, you know, in games that matter. So, you know, we didn't have that one player, and, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we still went 7-1, but we just didn't.
Yeah. And I know as you said before, I don't think we had a breakout player per se, but there were a few players that really showed themselves. Mm-hmm. And OG was one of them.
Yeah.
In my opinion, OG showed a slight improvement. Chris Boucher really proved himself.
Yep.
And I think Matt Thomas, people got to watch out for Matt Thomas.
Oh, Matt Thomas can shoot.
Matt Thomas can shoot. He can shoot. There was this one game. forgot which game it exactly was. I think it might have been Memphis or Bucks.
Yeah,
And he dropped a lot.
Yeah, I think it was the Bucks. He dropped over 20 against the Bucks. I'm pretty sure, but yeah, I mean you're right. Him and OG, they really showed themselves what they can do,
Yeah.
and especially OG against the Lakers. Like he had more points than LeBron that game, and you know,
Dude, OG, his field goal percentage against the Lakers was really good. He was making all of his shots, I think. He only missed once or twice.
I believe you're right, and you know, looking forward to seeing what they can do in the playoffs. But it was a good showing all around, and I mean Siakam had a few down games, but I'm not too worried yet.
I agree with you. I don't think I'm not gonna take our results in the bubble to heart. In my opinion, we have more weapons that we're not showing yet. I know Nick has a lot going for him, but in my opinion, we did prove American media wrong. Not gonna lie.
Oh yeah,
I'm seeing a lot of the American media, ESPN, Fox News, kind of Fox Sports giving us a bit more credit, especially Stephen A. It's like you can't count them out, and not gonna lie, that's enough for me. Like thank you. At least you're acknowledging us.
Coward said we're making the finals. I mean, Coward said that we're gonna like. No,
I want to
knock out the Bucks, but he said that we're making the finals. So
I want to say the same thing.
They're giving us respect, so that's good.
I feel the same way. I want to say the same thing, but
Yeah.
not gonna lie. I need us to see. I need to see us in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I need to see us in the playoffs. I got to see how we play against the Nets. And speaking of the playoffs, let's talk about our playoff picture / predictions for the first round. And let's go back a bit and talk about the 1st and 8th seeds of the East before we get into the Raptors.
Yeah.
Bucks versus Magic, Kiran. Let's spend a total solid 5 seconds talking about this. I don't want to waste too much time.
I mean,
but Bucks in 3, Bucks in 4. Bucks in 4.
yeah. I mean, I think Bucks in 4 or 5. I mean, Orlando's got a solid team. They're like, I mean, I'd much rather face Brooklyn than them. But I mean, the Bucks are the Bucks.
I'd much rather versus Magic.
Oh really?
I'd much rather versus Magic because I
don't know.
I know what we can do against them.
Yeah, I mean,
the
we're
Nets
better
got
than
young
both.
players. The Nets got young players that actually proved themselves last year. The Magic have older players that have not proved themselves over the years. Like it took them 8 years to get here. You feel me?
Know. But
Like it took them 8 years just to make the 8th place multiple years in a row. The Brooklyn Nets players, we've been here 4 years. We're making the playoffs the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, Orlando, in my opinion, I think they're a better team than Brooklyn, and whether or not we'll match up against them or better than Brooklyn or not, I think they're better. And I mean, obviously Milwaukee's gonna just deal with them like we all think they will. But I think they can maybe win one, probably not, but maybe.
Magic, you think they okay? Nice.
So I guess Bucks in 5 is my prediction. So yeah.
I'm gonna go with Bucks in 4, but this is if the Bucks don't get injured. If the Bucks don't have a major injury to a serious role player or Giannis or anyone that can impact their game, I believe it's gonna be 4-0.
Yeah.
Going to the Raptors, I think I want to say Raptors in 5.
Yeah,
Raptors,
me too.
Raptors in 4 or 5. Depends how the games go, but I think it's around 4 or 5. I can also see the Raptors in 6, but that is if the Raptors are rusty, but I doubt it. I feel like the extra month they had or so, the extra few weeks they had in Florida and how they've been playing in both preseason and the actual games in the playoffs, they have only lost twice. And I feel like they'll be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, Raptors in 5 is my prediction as well. And if if Siakam takes a little longer for him to get running again, then maybe Brooklyn can win 2. But I think that we'll beat them in 5.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the other side, the 3rd and 6th, which is Boston versus Philadelphia. Honestly, this is a hard one for me. I think I'm gonna. Actually, Kieran, you go first. I want to hear. I want to hear yours. I want you to change my mind.
All right.
I don't know which team I'm exactly going. Convince me.
I right now I have the Celtics winning in 6 games, and with Ben Simmons, that means without Ben Simmons playing for the Sixers, that means that they're going to be hanging around, and without Simmons, Boston is a better team, but I think that the Celtics, I think the Sixers, after most of those guys have playoff experience, and Embiid's gonna really take a step up, and like probably average near like 40 a game. But hey, Boston, they were on and off in the bubble. I mean, like they crushed us, and then they lost to Washington. They lost to the Heat.
I feel like the Washington loss was just like last game of the season. Washington hasn't won. Why would we like really care that much? I feel like it's that sort of situation.
That's true. But also, I guess there's a little bit of a tiny storyline, but I think that Al Horford's going to play really well against his former team. I guess to keep the Sixers alive, but still, I think Boston will win in 6.
I actually agree with you. I think it's Boston in 6. But actually no, I'm gonna go Boston in 5.
Mm-hmm.
But mainly because I'm scared Joel Embiid is gonna get injured again. Dude, as much as I would like low key, I'm rooting for Joel. I'm really rooting for Joel.
I mean, I've said like on the air that I like him, a lot more than Simmons or most of those other guys.
Yeah. And like this is the thing with me though. Like I have usually 2 playoff brackets in my head. One is like the teams I'm rooting for, like players I want them to win, like storylines I want to see. And the other playoff bracket is like realistically, this is like my professional humble opinion of this is who's gonna go, and then another one that's like this is who I want to go. And sadly, this is one of those situations where in a professional way, I gotta say Boston is gonna beat Philadelphia in 5. So
yeah.
You convinced me, Kiran. You convinced me.
Hey, I mean it'll be interesting without Simmons, but I think that the Celtics will get it done.
Yeah. And now the last team in the East, we got Miami versus the Pacers. So, Kiran, what are your thoughts? Who do you think is going to beat?
So, I've, I guess, said this before. I am not as high on the Heat as, I guess, most other people. And they're going to win the series, I think. But I think it's going to go a full 7 games. And they'll beat Indiana in 7. And I think that Warren's going to continue to play pretty well. Although, when the Heat played the Pacers in the regular season game, it wasn't. I mean, Warren wasn't playing as well as he did against the other teams, but they still lost. And I think that Indiana can surprise a lot of people and keep the series close.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be around Heat in 7 or Heat in 6 sort of situation. I'm leaning towards Heat winning in general. It's a hard game. I don't know. I think it's going to be a deep playoff series, but I think it's Heat.
Yeah.
So we both agree it's going to be Bucks versus Heat and Boston versus Raptors in the semifinals. Now let's go to the Western Conference. And I will start off with the Western Conference. Lakers versus Portland. See, now this is the other, like, this is where I go back to what I previously said. Like, I have one where I'm, like, emotionally rooting for, and then what I really think it's going to happen. And emotionally, I'm rooting for Portland. I want Portland to win.
I agree.
Like, I would say Portland in 7 right now. But in, like, a realistic situation, I think it's going to be Lakers in 6 or 7.
Yeah, I have the Lakers in 6, but I mean, like I said, this Trailblazers team, they're gonna hang around. And
they're gonna give them a run for their money. You know
for sure.
Yeah,
and I'm cannot wait. I mean, as much as I'm excited to see the Raptors, what they can do, I'm probably most looking forward to seeing what Dame can do. Going up against LeBron and Davis, and
I love watching
in
their
the playoffs.
team. I love watching their team.
Watching them go head to head. I mean, their games that they played against each other. Before the season shut down, like the Blazers won. I'm pretty sure the Blazers won, and
Against the Lakers
at the Staples Center. So
yeah, I think they did.
Yeah, so that should be really interesting, and I mean, to see what Dame could do.
Yeah, I agree with you. Lakers in 6, we're 7. Now to the second spot, Clippers versus Mavericks.
This one is tough.
It depends if playoff Kawhi shows up.
Yeah,
I don't want to doubt on Kawhi. I know how Kawhi can be. I want to say Mavericks, but I think Clippers are going to win.
I think so too.
As much as I think, yeah.
And I mean, the Mavs, they played really well in the bubble too. And I have the Clippers winning in 6 also. I mean, if the Clippers winning in 5, I think that's kind of, it's not disrespecting the Mavs, but they're gonna hang around.
I feel like the Mavs make a bit of stupid mistakes. I feel like if they go into the playoffs this year, they're gonna learn, and next year they're gonna come back and be ready to go.
Yeah.
But I also wouldn't be surprised if they surprise everyone and beat the Clippers. I can see a situation like that too.
Hey, I mean, like, they got as much offensive firepower as, like, any team in the league. And seeing Luka in the playoffs is going to be really, really interesting as well. But it could happen. I mean, that would be a huge upset. But, I mean, it's not impossible. It is definitely not impossible.
Yeah, and this is the thing. This is why I say they make a lot of stupid mistakes, is because a lot of their games were close, especially in the beginning of the bubble games. A lot of their games were close, and they just lost because I felt like they didn't want it, and you can see it in their record. Like, in my opinion, Dallas is way better than Utah and Denver in my eyes. That's how good I can see Dallas being. But you can see the difference in those 5 losses, that Denver and Utah are more careful. Like, they go at it. They make sure, like, if the game's close, we're getting it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Well, the Dallas Mavericks are like, we're losing, let's cut it down a bit. And you could see that in the game, like against the Raptors, where they had a big lead. And then the Raptors just managed to come back and beat them and turn down the biggest deficit in points of, like,
in
the
franchise
biggest
history.
gap. Yeah. You know what
like,
I'm
it was
saying?
31, I think, or 32.
Yeah, they come back from 31-point loss, just like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Mavericks need to learn from that.
Yeah, that's obviously like one of that was probably my favorite game. I guess my favorite Raptors game this season.
Yeah, I agree. That was my favorite game this season.
Things like that can't happen in the playoffs. But like I said, this Mavericks team, they got up to 31 points against us. Like the Raptors are one of the best all around teams in the league. Yeah, and I mean the Clippers are similar in that.
And this is without Luka Doncic. Doncic.
Exactly.
And it says a lot about how good this team can be. It's just if the players want to show up. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I feel like Luka wants it but makes stupid mistakes. The other players, I feel like they just don't want it and they're just like slacking off a bit. But who knows, if in the playoffs, if they step up and do exactly what they need to, I wouldn't be surprised to see Dallas beating Clippers. Like, trust me.
Yeah. It's not out of the question.
If the Mavericks beat the Clippers, I'm gonna be here and say, hey, I said the Clippers, but I didn't count out the Mavericks. I said they can do it. They just need to step up.
Yep, and I mean, we mentioned Luka's impact and how excited we are to see him in the playoffs. Yeah. But it's not just him, but we're also gonna be able to see Porzingis in the playoffs too. So yeah, this Mavericks team is exciting, and it'll be interesting, the series.
Yeah. Now let's go to the third place team, Denver, versus the 6th place Utah Jazz. Might I say the teams between 3rd and 7th, it could have been any of them there because they were all so close in records. But in my opinion, Denver versus Utah, I'm gonna go Denver Game 7. Denver's been doing their job.
Me too. I have the same thing. I have the Nuggets in 7.
But Utah, if Mitchell is hitting his shots like he was earlier, I wouldn't count him out. But they're not that deep in their bench. Not having Bogdanovic is a huge loss for them.
Yeah.
And I think if they had Bogdanovic, I would have said Utah can do it. But Denver's just deep. Denver's players are just there. Denver's got more players for me to say, hey, if Jamal Murray is not hitting it, if Jokic is not hitting it, why not Millsap or Porter Jr. or why the fuck not Bol Bol or Jerian Grant? They can do it. Utah's like, I go through the list, and after like 2 or 3 players, it's like it's just up in the air now. It's just like you gotta pray someone hits it.
Yeah. So I remember, when we were doing our predictions for what was going to happen in the bubble, I said that I think that the Utah Jazz were a better team than the Denver Nuggets. But, after seeing what Michael Porter did, over these 8 games, I mean, the way he's played has completely flipped the switch for me. And although I think that's going to be a really close series, probably the closest first-round series of them all, in my opinion, Michael Porter, if he can continue what he did in the 8 games, then I think that Denver should have the upper hand because he's become like a legit scorer, next to Jokic and Murray.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now let's go into our final teams. The 4th and 5th place tied record: Houston versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now this is the part where my emotional rankings collide with my professional rankings. Or I can make a risk prediction, and this you can argue this is not a risk prediction really, but I'm gonna go with OKC in 6. OKC in 6.
I'm kind of leaning the other way. I have Houston in 6. So
I think this is the first one we disagreed with.
Yeah,
we have agreed with all of ours so far. I'm going with Houston. Sorry, I'm going with Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah. I mean, here, do you want to go first or should I go first?
I just okay, I'll explain why. I dislike the Rockets because I just feel like they don't have it. Like people are just trying to force it. And in my opinion, you can't force it. Like Houston just doesn't have it. Like you can argue if they get lucky this season, and I can see them getting lucky, but I just believe Thunder are the better team. They're better coached. They have a better system. They've played against different type of teams and won, and I feel like they could try to do different. They can have different playing styles. Like they can go with like Steven Adams, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Chris Paul. They can try to do different things. While Houston has only, hey, let's play small ball. We got Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Just pass to James Harden and let him score. Or let Russ lead the team and try to get his triple-doubles. Like, that's just not how you play basketball. And I think the Thunder play better basketball than them, and that's why they're going to win. And that's why I said in 6 rather than 7. Because I don't believe like a Denver-Utah game or a Lakers-Portland game, these two teams are so good. They're so talented, and they can play so well together and against one another that it's going to go to a game 7. You know what I'm saying? With Houston, It's just we're just hitting it and we're hoping we're making it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, the Thunder are the better coached team, I think. I mean, that's pretty clear. I mean, nobody thought they'd be in this position, and look where they are. But I think that their inexperience is going to hurt them, and obviously, Harden and Westbrook are notorious playoff collapsers. You know what I mean? Or they fall apart a lot. You know who else does that? Chris Paul. So I mean, he's never really had that.
I feel like Chris Paul's got them. He has something to prove, and it's not like he's got something to prove to the media or like to prove that he can make another playoffs round. It's a first round playoff game. He's trying to prove the Rockets wrong for what they did to him and what the media said to him, that you're washed out. You know what I'm saying? It's a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? He knows who he is proving wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. He's proved everyone wrong, and I think that he deserves to be, he won't win it, but he deserves to be in the MVP conversation for this season to like what he did. Like he went there with a bunch of kids and he won them 40 games and took them to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Which is I mean, you and we were discussing if if OKC was gonna flip him because we thought that they were in the tank and it was gonna be a complete rebuild.
Not
before
gonna
the
lie,
season.
I'm glad they ran with it. I'm glad
Yeah, me
they
too.
ran with it.
I'm glad they did too. But
Because
I
was thinking about the situation. Sorry if I'm interrupting. I was thinking
no
about the
problem.
situation, like back in the summer last year, and I'm like, what would I do if I was the Thunder? I got a player who's good, but he's aging, and I'm not saying him aging is bad. I'm just saying his
It's a
value,
fact.
based off the market, his value is probably going to go lower, and we can say, yeah, he's a star. He used to be a superstar, but he isn't a LeBron James. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you just, and he's a small point guard. So you can't blame people for saying that I believe he might not turn out to be a great, buy. But they ran with it. They're like, we got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander who can be an upcoming superstar. Let's grab this veteran, this, former All-Star, like former USA team captain or whatever, and let him lead this team, And he's a leader, and he is a leader.
He did exactly that.
You know what I'm saying? Chris Paul might not have any championships, but he's a leader, and that's something that James Harden isn't. Russell Westbrook is a leader in Oklahoma City, not a leader in Houston. Chris Paul was a leader in New Orleans. He was a leader in Los Angeles. He was a leader in Houston, and he's a leader in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I get that, and I think that his leadership provided something that James Harden doesn't have, and it was a huge benefit for this team. But I don't know. I mean, they proved everyone wrong, and obviously, who knows what's gonna happen in the playoffs? And I could very easily get proven wrong here, like I guess most people have during the regular season. But I just can't see them, beating the Thunder, or sorry, beating the Rockets.
Yeah, it's okay. We all have our opinions. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today's episode. Slightly longer. We had more to update on. We both had a lot of work to do these past few weeks, so we try to make this episode as condensedly as we could, and make sure we give a lot of information. There are more episodes sure to come throughout these playoff series. We are less busy. We got more basketball to watch, more entertaining basketball to watch. Let's say players, the players we want playing.
This is what it's all about.
Yes. Sadly, Kiran, I am going to say this though. There are going to be players who are going to get injured. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And that's just a sad reality we got to face coming with this. We've seen players get injured. Derrick Jones Jr., CJ McCollum, praying for both of them. CJ's injury is sort of a tough one. And so it is
Jonathan Isaac as well.
Jonathan Isaac, yes. He was a bit longer ago. I forgot about him, but any player who's gotten injured so far in the bubble, we wish them a safety recovery. And yeah, Kieran, do you have anything else to add?
I mean, yeah, just to go off on what you said, my prayers to the players that got hurt, and just looking forward to the playoffs. Only 2 days from now, from when we recorded.
Yes. So we're recording this right after the Memphis Grizzlies the Portland Trail Blazers beat the Memphis Grizzlies. And this episode is going to be out, I'm pretty sure, Sunday, August 16th.
So right before the playoffs.
Before the playoffs start. And yeah, we'll be out with more episodes. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that. We have more content coming soon. We'll be active and ready to go. And yeah, I'm Pouyan Shirzadi.
I'm Kiran Kilambi. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, and have a great day.